Hey everybody, Andy here, helping you build a career you love. Great to have you. Today, do I have a special show for you on questions you need to be asking employers right now. This is a 2022 version of how to interrogate an employer to make sure that they are a viable company. So get in the chat. If you're here with me live, say hi. Let me know who you are, where you're from, what you do, what you need. Put some question marks in front of your questions because I am going to do a Q&A after this session for those who are with me live. If you're in any of my programs, let me know with your hashtags if you're a boot camper or a leader or have anything else. Also, I want to just say a quick hello. Musa, Ronald, Weather Dude, Resume Master, EGR, NHL, Music 80s, Daryl, Dave, and the whole lot of you. Great to have you. It's going to be a good one. And actually, in addition to this questions to be asking employers right now, what you're actually watching is the first part of a three-part little string of live shows that I'm going to be having during my live office hours, or you might be watching this on the recording. But for today and the next couple of Thursdays, I want to hit some major topics that I think are vitally, just hugely important right now, considering what we're going through in the market, what's happening in the world, how that's affecting how it is affecting and will affect the employment market. And first, I want to make sure that you're joining a great company, and it's very difficult to assess it, especially if it's a small to medium-sized company. There's not a lot of public information. These questions I'm going to give you today, I'm going to give you 26 questions, are going to be incredibly valuable to be able to surface that information. So there's volatility there. The other thing is what I do expect to happen, and I referred to this in my job market outlook session that I did a few months back about what's going to be happening in the employment market over the next year or so. You need to become more indispensable at work. So next week I'm going to be coming back and we're going to be talking about how you do that. And then the third part of this series is because of all the volatility and transitioning and turnover of employees, right? A lot of you've heard of that great resignation, but and I don't even love the term because it's really not that. But just go with me on this because I know that's probably what you're hearing in the news. But this great resignation has caused for people who are moving jobs, you're getting huge salary increases, and what's happening to job stayers, not the job seekers who are moving, but the job stayers, their salaries are lagging substantially for people who are coming in new, who don't have as much tenure with that company, probably, or experience with that product or service or whatever that process is that you're working on. So we're going to talk about how do you get a pay raise at this time. So that's the little trio. But today we're going to talk about questions to be asking in a job interview. Now, let's dive into this. I got 6 groupings of these questions I want you to investigate, and I've got 26 questions. So there's a lot for us to uncover here, unpack, as they say, and go through. Before I get into that, I want to let you know I've talked about this subject a number of times before, but today's going to be different. In 2017, I put a couple of videos out. One video was about the most valuable question you can ask in a job interview. You can go and watch that. It still stands today, and it has to do with what success looks like. I also, in 2017, so 5 years ago, also gave you my top 5 favorite questions to ask in a job interview. All of those are still very good. And in interview intervention, for those of you who have this book, I'm still giving, at this moment that I'm saying this live and out loud right now, I am still giving this entire book, the $30 hardcover, the ebook, the audio book, and a few other bonuses still away for $7 shipping and handling. I'll send it to you anywhere in the world. There's 39 great questions to ask employers in here, and in this particular book package, we also have an extra ebook, How to Interview the Employer. 75 great questions to ask before you take any job. So those are all resources if you want more questions to ask an employer. Today, I'm going to talk about questions that aren't even any of those, because This goes to every time you are in a job interview, you ask questions, and the questions you ask need to be aimed at surfacing two things. One, is this a good company? Just in general, is it a good company? Is it solid? Will it survive? Can it take the market gyrations or the ups, the downs, or external factors or risks that they might encounter? And is it a good company for me? So all of your questions need to be designed to do that. But right now, what I want to concentrate on today is, well, what happens in this crazy time that we're in right now, where the stock market is dropped. We're in bear market territory right now, as when we're doing this live in June 2022. There's been a lot of turnover. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of hiring freezes. There's layoffs that are starting. And these are for a lot of the big companies that are in the news. But what about a lot of those small to medium-sized companies where it's really difficult to tell? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I hope you enjoy this. And while I take a sip of this delicious tea, can you let me know what some of your struggles are with asking questions to employers, just in general? What do you struggle with? Because I'd love to be able to address that somewhere throughout the talk. And while you're at it, make sure you don't miss anything that we have coming in the next couple weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you're excited about what's coming, or you know there's going to be a lot of value coming, make sure to click that like button and share this so that you can help some others. All right, now here's what I want to get into. I've got some slides here for you today, just so you could really visualize what I'm talking about. And the first area that I want to go to is the financials. So from a company standpoint, when you get into these companies and there's not a lot of information that's public, or you're really trying to dig at what's going on behind the scenes, as far as the financials are concerned, I would tell you that in general, in my observation of consulting for and recruiting for over 350 different companies, to see the ones that are truly successful, not to mention all the individuals that I've coached that were in companies other than those 350 companies. Companies fail not usually due to an inability to generate revenue, but more from a mismanagement of the revenue and lack of commitment to areas that they should be investing in. And I think you're going to find, as I go through the 6 groupings of these questions I want you to ask, that you're going to see that as a common theme about how companies can mismanage and be reckless with their dollars. So one of the questions that I want you to get out, and I guess before I get into all this, I want to mention that not every single one of you is going to ask every single one of these questions. The most important thing for me today with presenting this to you is giving you an idea of the things to think about and the areas to investigate. You can decide which are the most appropriate questions for you, and if you want to twist around my words or flower it up a little differently, please be my guest. I've talked at length about how to actually ask your questions as well. In the interview intervention book, I go into the formula that I would use. I've talked about it in other places as well on the YouTube channel. But pick and choose what you like. I'm giving you what I think is a pretty thorough view at ensuring whether you're going to be joining a viable company. What about who owns the company? It's important that you know that. It may sound obvious to you, or you may think you know who owns the company because somebody walks in and says, I own the company. Does that person own the company outright? Do they fully own the company? Have they bitten off a piece and given it to a private equity company? Are they considering doing that? Do some of the employees own the company? Is this the type of organization, especially if it's a small to medium-sized company, where the ownership has evolved and the number of employees who own it has grown? Some of these are good things, some of these are bad things. Some of these make people and their motivations vary depending on whether they own it, what their end goals are. Do they want to sell the company? Do they want to merge it with another? Or do they want to acquire other organizations? All this stuff is going to affect the viability of the company. And then not only who owns it, but how much of each portion does each person own? Is there somebody who has 50.1% of the company? right? Those kind of things. So you want to make sure you have an understanding of that. Now, when you get into budgets and allocations, what I'm really talking about here is how are the dollars that you're channeling into the organization allocated across the units? Now, this could mean different things for different company types. So for example, it might just be a one product or one service organization. You're very, very concerned in that case about where they're allocating their dollars to grow their product or service revenue. Is all of the money or 80% of the money being invested into the engineering and the product development? Is a lot of the money being allocated to the marketing team? Is no money being allocated to the marketing team? Is there sales resources that they're going to invest in? What kind of back office infrastructure do they have? Administrative support. So look at how their money is allocated across their units or across their product lines. So if I have multiple products, am I investing equally in each one? Or do I feel like I have a bread and butter product? Am I going to focus more on selling the iPhone or the iPad or the MacBook or the Mini or the whatever, right? Or ancillary accessories, those kinds of things. You want to understand this because if it's a multi-product organization, are you supporting the product that isn't the bread and butter product, not the most strategic product? Are you joining the marketing team but they have no marketing budget, or they don't really, or you're joining the sales team and they have no marketing budget? So you want to understand these things. And then not only where they're allocating their money, but why they chose to do that. The rationale is important. And then when you get onto the revenue, how is the revenue actually generated? Like, where does it come from? And not just where does it come from, but how is it distributed across the customer? So let's talk about this for a few minutes. So when I talk about how's the revenue generated, it could be, well, we sell a widget, we make $1. We sell a service, we don't make all the service up front, right? And by the way, this matters in how they get paid, from whom they get paid. And I'll talk about some stories about some catastrophes that have occurred over my lifetime and why these things were predictable. But we one time, MileWalk, the executive search firm MileWalk, had a client and we were recruiting, and the CEO had called us in. And when I asked these questions. I, as a recruiter, was asking the CEO these very questions. And I got to the part where I was asking, how is her revenue distributed among her client base? And the reason I was asking that, it was a small organization that was set to grow. The market was friendly at this time. She was working in an area of need. But when she got to the point where she said, well, we have a lot of these resources that are allocated to one client. So she was a consulting firm, and 50% of the resources were allocated to one of the clients. And I said, are you concerned about that? And she said, well, normally I would be in on the surface, but I'm a part owner of that company and I sit on the board. I said, okay, for now, okay, that sounds fine. And for a couple of years, it was. But at one point, a couple of years later, that organization that had all of these resources that were half of her company that were consulting for them decided that they wanted to pull the contract. And within an afternoon, she lost half her future revenue and had to let go of all these resources that she had hired over the couple of years. Not only did she have to let all of them go, but then she also had to let some additional people go. So these kinds of things are really important that you have an understanding. Is it allocated across different market units? Is it allocated across different solution lines, different industry lines? Are you in the consulting pool, but your bread and butter is financial services, and the monies are allocated, and financial services a very small allocation, and a lot of the others are very large? Or is financial services very large? What happens if we have a recession in that particular sector? So you want to know these things. These are not be all end all and in and of themselves a reason to run out just yet. This is data that you're gathering. So you want to make sure you take a look at that stuff. And then, where are they pouring their money? So where are you putting your money, and why are you putting your money in there? What levels are you committing to it? And where are you in the market right now, and how much financial commitment and resource commitment do you intend or think it will take or intend to plan for to become a market leader? This is a multi-pronger because, number one, you're implying to them that you think that they want to be the market leader, so you want to get some insight into where they're going, where they think they are in the market, how they think they can better position themselves, how they can grab more market share, and we'll get into some of the intricacies of that a little bit later in the talk. But this is something that you want to look at, is where are they putting their money? Are they pouring their money into areas that you are not a part of? Right, so you want to make sure that you understand that. Am I joining a team where they're not allocating a lot of money? Am I just replacing somebody who already was pulling their hair out of their head? Okay, and then the last one, are you profitable? You might laugh at this, but a lot of companies are not profitable. Or what kind of margins are there? Or what kind of margins are there on the products I'm going to be supporting? What would it take to become profitable? So we one time did a search, another company, different company than the one I originally mentioned. And this was a document management, searchable, Google-like internal product that organizations could use, especially in the manufacturing sector, to be able to search for information, key information, find it very quickly. I was meeting with the CEO, and he was talking about how much money they invested and how cool the product was and what the product could do, and that not a lot of products could do this and all that good stuff. So great. Obviously, you're not profitable. How have you positioned yourself to become profitable? What are you doing? So he was explaining to me that they were getting these 10 pilot clients who were paying just some fraction of what the software as a services tool was going to be charging ultimately. And I asked him how long it was going to be before he could get in the black and get out of the red, and what it would take to do that. So not only do you have to invest in the product, but you have to invest in operational people, you have to invest heavily in salespeople. And it turned out that he talked about what an average deal size should be, how many they would need, so we could start to do the math. Except one of the areas that I was really concerned about was he was asking us to help him recruit salespeople, and he had 3 salespeople who were no longer with the company because they couldn't ultimately meet the demands because, number one, the product wasn't really ready. They were having a difficult time articulating and showing it. And number 3, he had quota demands, or at least other metrics that they needed to attain that were very difficult for them to attain. So they were quitting. And so we were trying to replenish those people. So not only was he wasting money in people he wasn't building equity, so to speak, but also an equity and an understanding of the product and how to sell it. So you need to make sure that you know these things about organizations. And the next one is, I want to talk about this one. And most companies that I've seen, most, not all, but most of the ones that are growing, they have a resource misalignment because they're chasing today's needs, the problem that's right in front of them, and they're hiring resources to do that, except they're not anticipating the problems they want tomorrow. Let me be really specific here. Maybe let me go direct to the camera. So you all, for those of you that follow me and those of you that don't or that are new to my community, the Mile Walk Academy is a small company. We have a couple of dedicated people, Kara and Stacy. We have other people who work with us who are specialists in particular areas. We have some other contractors we lean on for different things. And when I look at my organization, and you don't have to be a big company to make a big impact. I would argue that till the day I croak. And a lot of you are going to join small to medium-sized companies, but it doesn't matter what size company you're joining. This could happen to anybody, okay? Ask Blockbuster. So when I look at looking for resources, I have to think about, from a business perspective, what are my problems today? So when I started as a trainer, my problem was I had two problems. Number one, I needed to build a community of people who knew me, knew what I was standing for and what I offered, and also could be part of that community, could spread the word, could benefit from my teaching, but also would be able to enroll in my programs and my services. But that was another one of my problems. I had to build the product to actually sell it. So I had to build the product problem. Then once that was done, I had two other problems. I had a marketing problem and a sales problem, which I had to address. Now, I'm equipped to do both, but if I wasn't, I might need to hire somebody to do marketing and sales of my product. And then what I work toward and what I'm constantly looking at is not just how do I sell my products and programs or whatever it is that your company offers, but what's the problem I'm trying to work myself into? The problem I'm trying to work myself into is a service problem. And a service problem is, well, I sold a bunch of my coaching program, my job search coaching program. I have a number of enrollees. There's so many of them now that I'm having a hard time answering all their questions, servicing their needs to have coaching sessions and all that. So now I have a service issue. One of the ways to solve the service issue is for me to go hire other people to help me with this. That's one way. I choose not to do that. I don't think trust is transferable in that regard. Or what? I could automate that. I could automate the responses more. I could make sure that there's a bigger knowledge base. Or what else? I could slow the process down by raising prices, or I could do a combination of all these things. If a company does not have visibility to what its problems are tomorrow, the resources they hire today, they may or may not convert into either the problem they're choosing to go for or unexpected circumstances that alter their behavior at any time. Think Zoom stock, pandemic occurs, something like that. Or a change in strategy of the company. And we'll talk about that one a little later too. But think about what happened with Zoom. Zoom would love to have grown in March of 2020, right? It always wanted to grow, but instead of growing like this, what happened? It went like this. Why? Because we got a pandemic. Then what happened? Then everybody started using their product. Then what happened? Well, their customer service is terrible. The quality of their video recordings is terrible. I, as already paying customer, had everything degraded instantly. So when I needed help, we would go on the chat and we would wait 2 seconds. Instead of 2 seconds, it became 2 days. The quasi-high def recording that I would get, what happened? It gets all grainy because there wasn't enough bandwidth, because there was so many people. They didn't account for a lot of these things. And while this is an extreme example, these kind of things happen, but they sink companies. So you need to be thinking about this. So how do you evaluate this? All right, well, you've got to evaluate the resource needs. So from a priority standpoint, you can attack it this way. Well, what resources are the most vital to the success of the company? The success of the company on the trajectory it's on, the success of the company on any future changes to the strategy and any markets you're going to pursue. Are you in alignment? Are you in alignment with that or not? Are you not part of the most vital resources? Wait, I'm not saying everybody has to be. I'm saying I'd want to know this, right? So you got to look at that. And then how will you hire for resources to solve tomorrow's problems? Now, you could tee this up with, what are you working toward? What kind of resources will you need? So if you hire somebody today, will they be able to solve the same types of problems, or will the same resources be able to solve the new problems that you are trying to work toward in the future? You need to calibrate these number one and number two for the company type. So whatever company you're interviewing with, you need to anticipate, what are the issues today? What issues will they be facing based on what? Growth. Let's assume everybody wants to grow, right? We always want to grow. Or market condition changes, right? Or any external risks. We'll get to this in a little while. So you need to calibrate this for you. Which resources are you investing in right now? What are you doing to invest in your resources? So which ones are you investing in, and what are you doing to invest in them, and how much are you doing to invest in them? So this is vital. This isn't as simple as what kind of training do you offer? That's a nice question, but it doesn't really tell me a lot. Okay, and I don't really care about that because from a personal development standpoint, I'm going to go and learn whatever the hell I need to learn to be the most awesome employee, and no one's ever going to touch me, right? I'm going to be so far out ahead of everybody. I'm talking about understanding the psyche of the employer. Are they actually putting time and effort into the people? Because guess what? If I put time and effort into you, I'm not letting you go. Because not only are you learning more, should be learning more each day you're on the job, but I'm pumping dollars and time and handling and sending you to training courses and teaching you stuff. I don't want to let you go. Okay, so this is really important. What skills do you consider the most important right now? So it's not just which resources, but what skills within those resources. So if I was to hire somebody right now, I would want certain skill sets, sub-skill sets in the different areas that I need. So while we have a marketing engine, we have a social media engine, which is part of our marketing engine, there are other elements within those areas where I could use more help. We just don't have enough bodies, enough resources, enough person power to handle it. But I would want to know. And then, do you have succession plans? What does that look like? Do you even have a succession database? Do you have a plan to grow your people? And then I would get at the turnover. Why is it, and what are you doing to lower it? Now, commitment. This is another one. This is big, and this is where so many people screw up. Yes, I'm committed. At Mile Walk, I'm committed. I'm going to build this. I'm going to build that. I'm going to take my time and venture into that area. I can tell you that in an interview, right? But most organizations, so my little phrase here, even Nostradamus wouldn't be able to actually execute plans as laid out, right? Nostradamus might be able to predict what's going to happen, but how you make that happen or even exactly when it's going to happen is very difficult to tell. And so what happens is when companies encounter either a shortcoming, or other risks that send them off their path, or anything that contributes to a delay or a lack of achievement, or why couldn't they sell that product? Maybe we should abandon it because that seller could always sell, right? They're susceptible to abandoning projects. Let me go back, tell you a story. So when organizations set expectations, I generally chuckle inside. So if you ever invite me into your organization and I ask you, how did you set those targets? You know I'm going to be laughing internally. Because here's what most companies do. Well, the salespeople sold $800,000 on average last year, so we ought to be able to, jump that up to $1.2 million. Oh, we hear in the news there's a big market share, and there's a $5 billion market share for people who want to buy these services. So since we're a top 3 company, we should be able to harvest at least $1 million or billion or 2 or 500 million or whatever. So all of this stuff is nonsense, right? You cannot set appropriate targets without doing what? Having history, having data, having good prediction assessments that factor in the right things to be able to look forward and look at macro trends and micro trends and other things. So if I go in and talk to you and you say to me, Andy, well, we're looking for a VP of sales, or we're looking for a seller, and we want somebody who we're raising next year's quotas to $1 million because everybody averaged 800,000, so we just need to raise the bar. That's ridiculous. I mean, they're doing one of those, right? So if somebody says to you, great question. So here's what we did. We looked back at the previous year. We looked at the markets we were penetrating, and one of the products we were selling was a new market, so we accounted for that. So we had a little more education to do, but now we have a little momentum there. We also noticed, as we looked at our 12-stage sales process, that when we got to stage 10 and we lost some of these and we got the rationale why, we recognized what we were doing wrong, we fixed some features, and so on. So I'm expecting that of those 30 we lost, we might be able to win another 10. And then in this area, some of these people were newer, which actually pulled the average down, but they've got more experience. So when I look at all these factors, I looked at the market share, I look at what companies are doing. We did a survey of this and that. We got some existing customers who've surveyed in that they're interested in buying these additional services from us. We rolled all that together. I added it up. I saw the number and bang, there it is, 10 mil. And I got 10 reps. That's $1 million each. Okay, now we're talking. Right? There's some science and some algorithm and some history and data and forethought behind why I think what I think. Okay, so you need to do this. So when you get into the area where you're asking about this, you are assessing how committed they are, but in order for them to be committed, if there's rationale behind the growth targets and the expected timeline, then they're more likely, number one, to hit them, hit milestones, hit achievement goals, or whatever it is, and stick with it and not abandon it for reasons that are not actually true, but more like feelings. So how quickly and to what extent do you want to grow? What method did you use to determine the targets? How did you come up with that number? What makes you think you can get that percentage of the market share? Ask it however you want, just ask it. And then you want to look at, okay, that's fine, that's good, I like that, right? And you're hiring me because I'm a badass and I know what I'm doing and I'm going to help you achieve that. But should we not achieve that? What would happen if we were unable to hit that number, attain that profit margin, be able to do this and that? What would you do? Right? What have you done in the past when you didn't hit those numbers? How committed are you based on your backlog of contingency dollars? So how long can you continue to go if you don't achieve the results that you want? How long? I asked that one guy with the document management system. He said, I made $6 million from this other deal and I'm willing to use all of that. That'll last me. And he told me how long, right? Kind of thing. Okay, where's it coming from? Out of my own pocket. All right, great. Where's the investment likely to come from? Well, we got money from a private equity, blah, blah, blah. We got money from our other shareholders. We've got a line of credit with the bank. All right, that's fine. I don't love that, but right? So you've got to understand how long can you go? Because when they start ejecting people, where do they eject first? They eject from projects that they throw the towel in. If they change their strategy and they abandon product lines that they were not committed to, like at what cost? Like there's no way I'm going to stop what I'm doing because I hit a bad month or a bad year. I'll go forever because I'm committed to it and I can, kind of thing. You need to know that about them. All right, so you want the rationale. You want to understand all that. And then this is pretty basic stuff, but on this one, it doesn't matter who the company is. It doesn't matter public, private, big, small. It doesn't matter if they're a product company or a service company. You're going to have internal risks. You're going to have external risks, market share risks. You're going to have stuff coming out of left field. You're going to have vendors who can't supply the updated software with the new features by a certain date or time or whatever. So you want to get into the risk management line of questioning. So what are your top risks? You're in the hospitality arena. You might think a pandemic is your biggest risk. Well, you know what? I don't know. Anybody go fill their car up lately? No one's driving even across state lines, let alone getting on an airplane because they're getting squeezed. Right? There's a lot of other things that go in, that are forces that are in play. So, what are they? And they better be able to give you 3 right off the bat. Like boom, boom, boom. These are the things. I hate this expression, although I'll use it for illustrate. But like, these are the things. Don't ask them what keeps them up at night, because I want to yak if you do. But that's what you're really trying to get at. Like what makes your night's sleep uncomfortable, kind of thing. And then what are the mitigating plans or the mitigation process that you're going to go through to avoid those. Right? So some of these are risks where you could do things to avoid. Maybe you can't do a whole lot about oil prices, but you can, whatever your reserves are, so to speak, maybe you could have more of those. What are you going to do about supply chain issues? Well, we're raising our prices. That only going to last so long. Your inventory you're going to need to build up. You got high season coming, but high season could all of a sudden become low season because people are getting squeezed by inflation and so on. So you got to be asking these questions. And then what happens if? What happens if you tried to mitigate it but you couldn't? What are the backup plans, and by when are you going to pull the cord to know you're going to invoke them? Okay, so you want to make sure that you're doing this. All right, where are we now? We're sort of on the bottom there. Who's loving this, man? Come on, tell me in the chat. What do we got? You loving this? What so far of the first 3 or 4 did you enjoy the most? And if you are getting value out of this, make sure to smash the like button and share it. And make sure you subscribe, of course. All right, let's get on to tomorrow's problems. All right, I want all of you to start putting this in your repertoire, man. Keep it forever. But every company should work to have tomorrow's problem, right? This is obvious to me, but most companies fail to do this. So when I take on a project, I ask the team, okay, what problem are we working toward? Right? That should become like SOP for any project you're going to take on, or any change you're going to make, or any growth that you want to attain. So what is it? So what are they? So what are you working toward? What's the next issue you're going to have to address? And then again, so you could attack it from this standpoint too. This is an echo from what I had earlier when we were talking about resources, but it is. So based on the problems that you anticipate for tomorrow, how have you adjusted today's hiring? Are you looking for more versatile people who could handle today's problem and tomorrow's? Are they multiple skill sets, or is that a whole new team? Or are you going to cross-train and up-train? Or, right, now remember, you don't have to ask every single one of these. You're trying to look at you. Think about where you are on the team and where you are in the company. Are you going to be affected by, so wait, I'm going to grow and I'm going to start, I'm that document management guy, let's just something like that. I'm going to go and sell to small to medium businesses because I can have executive level discussions. So I need salespeople who can sell at the small to medium business level. Great, except tomorrow's problem is what? Selling at the enterprise level, right? Making your product bigger. That's just an example. Well, is the salesperson that you're hiring today that you could get for a lot less money because they have a lot less skills, the same person that next year or the year after is going to be able to sell to an enterprise? You got to remember, they did not get that skill over the course of the 2 years because what? They were selling to small to medium businesses. You don't magically get enterprise level relationship building skills, sales skills just like that just because you've been selling this product. Right. So then what? Then what happens? You do one of a couple things. You either try to coach them up and teach them, or what do a lot of companies do? They get impatient because, well, you've been selling that stuff for 2 years. What's the matter? Why can't you go sell it at that big multinational company when you've been selling it at mom and pop hardware store down the block, right? And they wonder, so what do? Then they go out and they hire somebody else, right? And then small to medium business person, they're PO'd because they wanted the enterprise level position. I mean, like, this stuff is, this is a big deal. I want to tell you a little story here. We had this another client and CEO. She had a technology consulting company that set up high-speed networks security for the capital markets industry. And one of her lieutenants used to work with me at a company. This woman, the lieutenant, she reached out to me and said, Andy, hey man, how you doing? I'm working at this company. We really need your help. We're having a hard time finding really strategic project managers to help us, architect, blueprint, and run the development of these large-scale networks for these capital markets companies who are like crazy to begin with. So there's a whole kind of complexity in doing this for organizations that are generally impulsive, generally impatient, want everything today, move at a breakneck pace, and by the way, it needs to be up and running and it needs to be perfect. So we need some help. So I go in and I meet with this team, and the CEO explains what she wanted, and I said, okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Give me a week. This is not like, I'm thinking, oh man, this is not a hard search. I'm already spending the money. So a couple days later, I get her a couple people, Jorgen and Chris. I'll never forget this story. Send them on over. The CEO wants to talk to him first. No problem. Love it. That's great. We're going to know right away. She calls me up. She says, Andy, genius. Where have you been all my life? I'm like, I get that a lot. So, love them. I can't decide which one I want, so we're probably going to take both if they can get through the rest of the interviewing process. But I know they're gonna kill it because I can already tell. So we'll get them set up with everybody we need to. I just want to let you know how I felt. Great, no problem. Sure enough, they hire him. 6 months later, I go having lunch, right, talking about other searches and this and that. And Andy, you're the best, and these guys are great. Another 6 months goes by, same story. Another 6 months goes by. Now we're having lunch. Andy's not so great anymore. CEO says, boy, those project managers you gave me a year and a half ago, they're really not cutting it. It's not cut. What the hell happened? Like, Andy was a genius. How did I go, all of a sudden? So, well, we had, it's a lot of things, but we had this issue, for instance, a couple weeks ago. And we get this call at 2 a.m, and one of the networks went down, and Jorgen, got the call, and he was philosophically trying to figure out what was wrong instead of just fixing the damn thing. And I said, wait, what'd you say? He's answering calls at 2 o'clock in the morning? My strategic process MBA guy, button-up guy, is answering service calls in the middle of the night? Well, yeah, we're changed the business model, and we're now an outsourced networking company, which you knew we were doing. I was like, yeah, I thought that was some of your company. You were doing that because we've helped you get some people for that side of the business. She says, right, well, we stopped all the other stuff. We moved everything. I was like, hold on a second. Wait, let me get this straight. You took the architect, the mastermind, the blueprinter, and you're now making them like a subcontract, like fix the electricity kind of thing. It's like, you know that doesn't work, right? Kind of thing. And this is what happens is if you make strategic changes, all parts are not just interchangeable. So the question is, are you looking forward enough? Now, I realize you might say, well, Andy, I didn't know she was going to go and change the strategy. Except that when the strategy gets changed, if that happens and it's unbeknownst to you and all of a sudden you're finding yourself waking up at 2 a.m. for a support call, you gotta start asking some questions, right? You gotta start evaluating. So you want to try to look at this, and you could even investigate this. What has been your experience with moving resources around? Have you had any situations? Like you can go down this hole if you want to. But remember, you got to make sure that they're looking forward. All right, back to the slides here. And then, what about previous problems? So, I don't have a problem, no pun intended. I don't have an issue with companies encountering problems. It's okay to do that. It's in how you handled them. All right. Well, what was the last big issue? Now, for some people, it might be the pandemic. For some people, it could be we got acquired. We have new management team. It could be anything. And what happened? What was the issue? How did you react? Meaning, like, what exactly did you do? Like, oh, the pandemic hit and you had to fire a bunch of people. How did you do that? How exactly did you do that? Did you actually call everybody into a boardroom and say you're out of here? Did you send them a slip of paper? What did you do, and what did you learn? What did you learn, and what have you changed? Okay, so something happened. All right, well, we built an infrastructure. We made it so that everybody is mobile. Now, if that ever happens again, this and that, we wouldn't have to let people go. We figured out and reallocated and so on and so forth. And okay, well, what would you do differently? All right, so let me give you a story, the kind of stuff you're looking for here. Ooh, where is my little... Dang, I hate this. Sorry, folks. Where is my little... There we go. I once worked for this organization, and I started in 1999. Over the next couple years, the business had grown quite large. Then the tech bubble burst, and for anybody who was around in 2001, and the dot-com bubble burst and the tech bubble and just the total cratering. Nothing I ever want to relive again. We as a management team recognized that anything that's going like this is susceptible to little pops, bubble pops. So what happened was when the bubble burst in 2001, in that time, a lot of other consultancies, I worked for a IT consulting company, a lot of other consulting companies folded because what? They saw dollar signs. They were taking on clients who were dot-commers. They were not only taking them on and having them pay later, but in some cases, they were taking stock and equity in these organizations because these organizations wanted to go public, and a lot of the consulting firms, instead of taking check payments, were taking share payments. We didn't do that. We said if we take on any non-brick and mortar, any organization that doesn't have X years of a track record of success, for these dot-com companies, if you want to work with us, you have to pay us 75% of the overall fee upfront in cash before we start. And then you can pay the balance when we're done. We won't even bill you until we're done. So we did this, and we would only allow 20% of our overall company's portfolio to be in these high-risk situations. When the market cratered, we were affected, except that, what? We still collected 75% of the bill, even if they ended up canceling projects or anything of that nature that were out of our control. But also, we didn't have to let all these consultants go because what? 80% of our business was relatively intact. But what happened was, over time, this still eroded and we were affected. So every 6 months, we would have a layoff that we would go through, except a month before the layoff would occur, we would announce to everybody, we're going to go through a layoff in July, but anybody who would like to volunteer and leave, and if you want to volunteer and leave, basically save one of your comrades or somebody who could otherwise be let go, we will give you a nice severance and vacation and other stuff, and that's the deal. And if you don't take it and we let you go, then you don't get any severance, or you only get a smaller amount. And this went on for a couple of years. But at least if I told you that story to say, hey, that's how we handled it, you're going to look at me and say, okay, well, the management team is smart, there's some forethought, and it was handled humanely, kind of thing. As opposed to, well, I walked in one day and I said, everybody got to let you go, kind of thing. So you're looking for these kinds of things. So I want you to make sure that as you think about all of these areas that you're doing that. And then let me run through a couple of bonus items here and just a recap before we get into something else here. And then what I would say is some of my faves. I mentioned these two videos, the most valuable question to ask in a job interview and my top 5 questions to ask in a job interview. I would check them out, but to give you a preview of what's in the top 5, it's related to the culture. It's what will surprise me. What does success look like? Actually, item number 3 is also, I think, the most valuable question to ask in a job interview. There's also, where do you see the company in 3 to 5 years? So you want to start investigating that stuff, and your expectations and management style and things of that nature. So the other thing is, make sure if you're interested, while I still have this $7 book deal. So it's the free book for $7, material and handling, because I am going to be getting around to very soon altering this package. But this comes with the hardcover, the ebook, the audio book, which you can't get anywhere else. It comes with a couple of other booklets, and one of those is the 75 great questions to ask before you take any job, how to interview the employer ebook. Plus there's 39 questions in here. You will be totally covered from today's session and from this session. So I hope you enjoyed that. I wanted to get it in 45, it's 49, but I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to click the like button, send the signal to YouTube. Please share it. There's a lot of people that need this help. I don't want people making bad choices on their careers by joining poor companies where they could have otherwise avoided it. And if you are with me here live, we're going to go to the Q&A. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.